I'm faster, I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap and my name is XRP. To the moon, yeah, get everybody by surprise with my money. Everybody by surprise, XRP. Everybody by surprise, see it coming. Everybody gotta just wait and see. I get everybody by surprise with my money. Everybody by surprise, XRP. Everybody by surprise, see it coming. Everybody gotta just wait and see. Bank the unbanked, bank the unbanked, bank the unbanked now. Bank the unbanked, bank the unbanked, bank the unbanked now. Bank the unbanked, bank the unbanked, bank the unbanked now. Bank the unbanked, now bank the unbanked. Yeah, everybody by surprise with my money. Everybody by surprise, XRP. Everybody by surprise, see it coming. Everybody gotta just wait and see. Everybody by surprise with my money. Everybody by surprise, XRP. Everybody by surprise, see it coming. Everybody gotta just wait and see. I'm faster, I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap and my name is XRP. I'm faster, I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap and my name is XRP. Everybody by surprise with my money. Everybody by surprise, XRP. Everybody by surprise, see it coming. Everybody gotta just wait and see. I get everybody by surprise with my money. Everybody by surprise, XRP. Everybody by surprise, see it coming. Everybody gotta just wait and see. I get everybody by surprise with my money. Everybody by surprise, XRP. Everybody by surprise, see it coming. Everybody gotta just wait and see.
Hello everyone, let's get started. I have no financial interests and I have no sponsored links, and also you cannot give me any donations. I'm just doing that for education, for getting your brain to work. I hope everyone is healthy. We here in Switzerland most are a bit tired of COVID. How do you feel being pre-rich, guys? Can you hear me? Still waiting for the 4 figures. Yes, me too. Good. Okay, perfect. So today I want to make it a little bit interactive with you guys. I want you to tell me what you can see here on that page, and I will write down some notes we can discuss, and eventually I will shed some light what I think what we see here. So I will mark or write down the findings of you in this text editor. Behind it is a list of banks which are from the top 100 banks. It's 24 banks, but there is, according to Leonidas, something about between 5 and 10 which are in trials with Ripple. So, what do you see here on the screen? Tell me. Neither do me. Tell me, what do you see? Compare the list of names, as example you can see here, with those ones. Check very in detail what this pipe ripple is. Check the numbers up here. Anything special? Big banks. Here are the big banks, right? On this matching with the top 100 banks, loud and clear. Yes Bank and Axis Bank are from India. Are they big? Go rough. Or are they like smaller ones? Because they're not part of the top 100. Later on I come to that, and I will explain. I'm still waiting for your thoughts on what you see. For explanation, this list here has been compiled by XRP Steward. There was once a link available on Ripple website with matchmaking, and XRP Steward and one or two other guys went through and created a list, I think on Google Sheets somewhere, and that's basically the result. But there is an interesting thing about that list. I want to know if you can see it. Axis is second largest private bank. Okay, but private banks are usually smaller banks for the rich guys. No thoughts on Davos. Well, there will anyway not be a Davos. Okay, let me help you a little bit. As from your side there is not really coming a lot. I will explain what we see here. I will close that for time being, as obviously we don't need that. In this matchmaking list, it's like, I don't know, roughly 120 financial institutions. There are a few banks. There is American Express, I think, is listed somewhere, and Diners is here, Diners Club, which is a credit card, and I think American Express, I don't remember, but mostly it's small to really micro companies, which are remittance companies in the remittance market, so to speak. That contrasts totally to those banks we are pretty sure are also customers of RippleNet. What also is special about this list here is that each name has this pipe Ripple. Now let me explain to you why that's so important to understand. As a programmer, I can tell you this pipe something is usually done to make a mapping, like I have prepared here. There's the banks, there is the provider, Ripple, Finastra, Temenos, CGI, whatever other payment solution provider, and the resulting list is usually the name, pipe, Ripple, name, pipe, Finastra, name, pipe, Temenos. And here we only see Ripple. That doesn't make sense. If all RippleNet institutions were Ripple customers, you wouldn't need to add this pipe Ripple. It's redundant. Literally each and every one of these names has the pipe Ripple. So let me tell you, this is, in my perspective, 100% proof that there are other providers like Finastra, Temenos, all the ones we know about, which do that as well. Okay? So that's one important thing to understand, that I'm pretty sure, and I asked Navin Gupta as well 2019, if those banks coming via Temenos or Finastra, if those are also counted Ripple customers, and he told no. That's kind of another proof that this list is really just Ripple customers. There might be a few more. Of that I'm not 100% sure. Now let's look at the top table here. Ripple has 550 employees, or more or less, roughly 400 customers. They have 2.4 billion, they write it down here, 2.4 billion notional value transacted in 2020, divided by 260 for work weekdays. Yes, we know Ripple is real time and it could work on weekends, but most banks, pretty sure, are not ready yet to do that. So that's the number I came up with. That amounts per day to like a little bit below 10 million transactions, and transaction volume of, no, hold on, amount, that's wrong, that's just the amount per day. $10 million are transacted, and roughly 11,000 transactions per day. If we do the math, we end up at an average payment size of about $800. That would match that list of remittance companies. I have no doubts there. That's usually in the area where I send money to the family of my wife. Let's contrast that now with figures from Swift. We can also have a look at the figures from Target too, but there I don't have all the figures. Swift has 4,500 employees, so like 10 times more. Swift has like 20 times more customers. They report 16 million payment messages per day, but I'm pretty sure that each hop on an intermediate bank is counted as an additional message. I think we can divide that easily by a number. I don't remember how I came down to those 800,000, but it makes kind of more sense that that small number. No, sorry. Actually, I know how I came to that volume, because I know, and I've in the accompanying documents in the description of the video, you can see the links I put here. So there is a link to a document which explains that the average transaction, this is also not volume, this is just average transaction, is 400,000 on Swift. The median, like the majority of payments, are around 25,000. That's compared with the 800 average from Ripple, that's a factor 500. Then from Swift GPI, we know that 85% of the volume, however, volume, I don't know what it means, if they mean payment volume or or like payment sizes. I could imagine that this means that only the smaller payments are going through. But if we divide that, we get to this 800,000, and that makes more sense as in terms of individual payments than the 16 million whatever payment messages they send around. This figure here is rather small. I could imagine that this doesn't incorporate the high value transactions yet, which maybe not go through GPI yet. That's my understanding. Otherwise I couldn't understand that, because maybe some of you which might be longer in the game know that 2018, like everyone has been talking about, 5 trillion a day. That SWIFT transacts 5 trillion a day. That contrasts quite drastically with this 350 billion. That's not even 10%. Later on I came across a figure that SWIFT transacts 2.1 billion, but even then it's like factor 10, almost smaller. Let's quickly contrast those figures to the figures from target 2. In target 2 we have a transaction volume of 340,000. We have 1.6 trillion dollar or euros in that case, which are transacted, and the average transaction, please do not confuse average and median. Average means in average there is like in target 2 there is like 200 payments a day which are larger than 1 billion. Okay, but there is like, I don't know, 200,000 payments from those 340,000 payments which are around, I don't know, up to 50k euros. So that's for that to basically to set a little bit those figures into perspective. Now, why am I not really worried about that? Because with these figures from Ripple, it would take like, I don't know, 3 years if they would grow like factor 5 like they describe here. It would take like 3 years until we reach a decent volume. I, however, believe that those figures, those reported figures here, only apply to real Ripple customers directly. And I tried to kind of prove that. This is a list of the top 100 banks. The ones marked in blue are those ones we are pretty sure they're RippleNet users, but maybe not Ripple customers. All the 100 together gives the green line. We can have the spreadsheet application make a trend line which gives us this logarithmic trend line. Obviously this trend line will go below 0 at some point, but the basic idea you get, it drops sharply and then it flattens off. Okay, that's very important to understand, that this curve gets flat and it will go almost to 0 but not to 0. Only the logarithmic curve will go below 0 because it cannot know the actual banks. So what I did is I did an example for the top 300 banks. What I wanted to achieve is to have a similar curve like the one for the top 100, but with a calculation down to the top 300. The opposite, the green, and for this I had to actually relearn how to solve differential equations. In German we call it integral. Like the green line is basically the total, like in the where they match here at that point we have roughly, that's roughly on bank 13. So all those 13 banks together will result in roughly 2 point, I don't know, 1 or 2, I think that's, I don't even remember, million, because it's trillion in the end, right? I think those are millions, and those are the, I think the transaction volume, transaction amount. No, the transaction amount. Exactly, it's the same, but this is the total and this is the individual ones. Okay, now if we go back to that table on top, I did the calculations for how to come to those curves for the transaction volume, which is in billions, and here I wanted to reach roughly this 2.4 billion at roughly the bank number 300 in the world, because we know that the global volume is roughly around there, and I think we can assume that not each and every bank is participating in global volume, even though they're a bank, but most likely they will have little to no volume for global remittances. Then here we have this transaction amount, those 16 million transactions from SWIFT. I did it a little bit less. I went down to 12 million to give some 4 million for all the other 10,700 banks together, so that they still have something to share, okay? And I did the same for the cost savings. Now the interesting thing is happening down here. The average top 100 have 17 billion in transaction, like this 1.6 trillion divided by 100, that's 17 billion, okay? Then if we would apply that to the 30 Ripple customers, we would 30 times the 17 would give us like 500 billion volume. Why that cannot be 100% correct, I tried to show down here. So if we have 100 banks and each can transact with each one, we have roughly 5,000 connections. If we have 30 banks, we have a little bit less than 10% of those connections, 435. But even if we divide that 500 billion per day, I'm pretty sure that on RippleNet already today there is I'm absolutely 100% sure we're close to $50 billion volumes per day, because those figures here, they simply don't add up. I mean, a company with 550 employees serving 300 customers which have 11,000 transactions a day, which in average are $800 of worth. I mean, I did a rough calculation. For 10 million, the SWIFT system would cost roughly, how much? 10 million, I'm so bad in like 5%, that would be like 500,000. And if Ripple charges like 1%, they would get $100,000 dollars per day for all those 300 customers or whatever customers are really theirs together. But that's literally nothing compared to the amount of employees they have. I mean, and the only explanation is that they're so big with 550 employees because they basically serve all those other implementers like Finastra, Temenos and CGI. But let's go back to that list here. And very important to understand that curve, that really, the blue one, that really goes almost to zero. And I tried to illustrate that here a little bit. So, bank 50 to 100 have a volume of 500 billion. Bank 100 to 200 have the same amount of volume. Bank 200 to bank 300, it drops already to like 30% of it or something. And this goes down even further, down to those little companies we know from that matchmaking list. And this is very important for you to understand, and I really hope everyone gets it. I am basically, the summary of what I'm trying to explain is the numbers Ripple is giving us is pretty sure just relating to those ones which are really Ripple customers. That's why they have the pipe Ripple here. And there is obviously others, those big banks we know which are customers of Ripple, which are not in those figures. And that's basically what I wanted to talk about. And yeah, tell me what you think. Hoi Sonja, meine Liebe, my love, said hello. How come they can't report everyone who's on RippleNet? It's not that they can't, they could, pretty sure they could. But it's not their customers. So basically it's not their volume. It's volume on RippleNet, but trust me, that could be one of the reasons the IPO from Ripple has been delayed. I mean, they could have done IPO quite some time ago already, but doing an IPO, they would need to publish all that data to us. They will not be able to hide that anymore. My daughter-in-law, is that correct? Is also here. Hello, Adrieli. So that's my thinking. Those figures. Let's go back to those figures again. This is a joke. This is a joke. 3 million transaction with 2.4 billion in value. That amounts to an average transaction of 800. I again want to remind you that Swift has an average transaction of 400,000. That's a factor of 500 difference. Okay? If we take the difference in notional value, in total value, it's a factor of almost 40,000. If I'd call my company a success, trying to put up a system and then only gathering like 0. Nothing percent from my competitor with like 10% of his workforce, I'd call myself a total failure. But Ripple is obviously pretty happy about their success, which is a reason why I believe that it's not the full truth. Well, XRP will have a chance. Hi XRP Horn. Gaurav, well, obviously those who follow me longer know, as soon as we see high value transactions going through ODL, because I'm pretty sure that that there are high value transaction on RippleNet already. Of that I mean, not one of those banks would invest $1 for like $500, $800 transactions per day. That's a joke. That's a freaking joke. Anyone who believes those figures from Ripple are the real deal, I mean, yesterday in the German live stream I was giving some comparison. Talking about comparison, hold on. I do have a chart here. That's the Swiss top, I don't know, 30 banks or so with assets under management or some, 2017. Maybe the figure have changed a little bit. As you can see, the value drops from, let's say, from, I think it's millions, then it would be a trillion, from 1 trillion to like 140 billion. Zürcher Kantonalbank, which is one of the like top 5 Swiss banks in Switzerland, has, I think, why are they not here? They have like hundreds, well, maybe they did have not quite so much by then, but nowadays they have 160 billion. It's like a state bank for one of our states, Canton Zürich. Canton Aargau, which is also one of the largest cantons or states in Switzerland, manages, compared to Canton Zürich with 160 billion, Aargauische Kantonalbank manages roughly 35 billion. And that's how it drops, and that's why those figures make sense for those really freaking small remittance companies. There I totally agree. But with those figures, that would mean that all those 30 banks from the Ripple customers, which are from the top 100, that they do not transact anything at all. And I think it's just because they're not direct Ripple customers. I really hope you understand what I was trying to explain. Let me get back to you guys. So, well, Elfie, the transactions on RippleNet are high. That's what I'm trying to explain. I have zero doubt of that. I have literally zero doubt. Only ODL transactions are low. Exactly, content consumed. That's what I've basically been preaching for the last 3 years. We're waiting for high value transactions, and I'm pretty sure, I repeat that on RippleNet itself we do have those high value transactions. Everything else doesn't make. Also, I mean, coming back to these figures from Swift, 350. Actually, they report $300 billion transacted per day with GPI at 85%. Again, I don't know what those 85% means. If it means transaction volume, transaction size in total, customers, I have no clue. But it would be a bit weird that only the last 15% of transactions would amount to 2 trillion to come to this 2.4 trillion. That would be, I mean, could very well be, but I mean, something else I wanted to show. Distribution transaction size. Let me show that quickly. Just for you to understand. So basically what we see here is the distribution of the payment side. I didn't find something similar for Swift. That's from Target 2. So they have small transactions, which make like 30% of all transactions. They have like a little bit higher transactions, up to 12,000. Like all transactions up to $12,000 make 55% of transactions in Swift. Now, when we go to 1 million, we're already at 90% of all transactions. Actually, I might. So 10%. Or maybe it's the same for Swift GPI, that they up to now only transact to a certain amount on GPI, and that the high value transactions are not there. Anyway, the figures are very interesting, that they're really happy to have like 300 billion per day transacted at 85%. Why do we need trustless Oracle? That's something I'm also wondering, content consumer, why we do not see ODL transactions elsewhere in the world. I really don't know. Well, in general, I don't think that 100%, like those 11,000 financial institutions, will eventually end up on RippleNet. That I don't think so, and it's also not really needed. I mean, as some of the Ripple employees have told in the past, that they're working together to connect whole payment networks. Like, I'm pretty sure that Japan and Australia, I'm 100% sure that they're connected. Even though that we inside, what did I say? Japan and Australia, right. Even though that we in Australia only have like 2 or 3 banks knowingly being Ripple net users. I will not say customers anymore, because we don't know whose customer they are, but for sure they're Ripple net users. And I'm pretty sure, because it's really the only problem. Oh, let me rephrase. I mean, the problem in replacing the old system is, and I have talked about that about 2 years ago. Maybe that's a hold up. I literally don't know. The whole liquidity management needs to change. Before you needed to manage liquidity for a day, for a week, maybe in some smaller corridors for a month or so. Now I don't even know if you would have to manage liquidity at all, because in the end it's real-time payments. Honestly, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that the implications of a move from any other payment type network to real-time gross settlement has a huge impact on liquidity management, and maybe that's a problem. I literally don't know. I guess Miguel Villas left due to other reasons. I think it was something personal, but that's just a hunch I have. But I mean, he's still very positive about Ripple after all. And let me remind you guys, we don't even need this freaking high value transactions. I give you a figure in target 2. We have like every 3 to 4 seconds a 5 million transaction. Let's say only the transaction up to 1 million go through the system. Then we have like every second one. And we have like 68,400 seconds. If I multiply that by a million, then we get to 86 billion. That can happen in the blink of an eye. And if only like 30% of that go through ODL, we're freaking rich already. Because they will not be able to do that at the current prices. Okay, you might now say, well, a week ago we had like 77 billion volume worldwide. That's correct. And this is something I honestly don't quite understand. But the thing is, ODL works through different exchanges, and I have explained that in the past. Each participating exchange need to be able to be liquid enough. Well, so I don't know when. I just say when high value transactions go through the system. As soon as we see $50 million payments go through the system, we will see $1,000. But we will see high 2 or middle 3-digit values already for smaller, like medium-sized payments going through the system. Now, what the holdup is, I really don't know. I mean, the same thing could be told by CBDC. 2018, all were crying, 2020 is the year of CBDC. What happened exactly? Nothing. Not one bank moved into like real life use of CBDC, and the reason is it's not so simple. We all think it's simple, but it's not so simple. And for those who don't quite understand, search on Google for the meeting Ripple had with the SNB, the Swiss National Bank. I think it was in May or June 2019, I guess. There was a meeting with like 30 or 50 central bankers worldwide, and Ripple was the only private institution there. And there were several panels, and there was one panel about CBDCs, and there was one guy really explaining the problems with CBDCs. You cannot just, you have to imagine a country needs to be able to manage the money supply somehow, and most central banks don't want to manage your money. They want to delegate this to the private banks. That's why it's not so easy. I personally believe the first CBDCs we will see will be not retail, but what's the other term? I forgot the other term. The opposite of retail, like this. Someone helps me. Retail versus. I don't remember. Let me quickly check. Retail versus wholesale. Retail or institutional. Yes, thank you. So basically, that's where I think we might see, but you also have to think about the fact not one person, be it an institution or a private person, wants his transactions to be visible on a blockchain. I couldn't give money to anyone anymore without the hop to an exchange and from there to my neighbor or something. I don't want my neighbor to know how much money I have. That's freaking none of his business. Meaning the only solution would be privacy blockchains, and there I am pretty. Okay, some might say, okay, we have Monero and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that those most likely are not as well tested as the real public blockchains like XRP, Bitcoin and the kind. Exactly, content consumer. But that's exactly what will happen once they go live. Doesn't make sense one bank goes live. Maybe they did, I don't know, maybe they did some calculations and they came and they realized we need at least, 1 or 2% of volume. Maybe they're waiting for that amount of volume to be able to make to be able to make sure that the price can be kept more or less stable globally? I have no idea. Well, SBI has been a lame duck. I really would have thought. I have to check my colleague if he knows something. Last time I asked him was, I don't know, around last September or October or so, and he said they're still not 100% live, which is very, very interesting. I mean, from 30 million potential investors, I would have very strongly assumed to see some volume. Some suggest that the problem is that SBI is not really an exchange because they only have like 3 or 4 tokens. English to me, I think seeing what happened a week ago with the pump to 80 cents. I mean, on a normal day or on a medium day, we have already 5 billion volume on XRP. On that pump day, we had like 70 billion. And I wasn't, okay, some exchanges shut down, but I think that's different. That's not really related to missing liquidity or something like that. I think that's just they don't want to lose money too much. That's another kind of story. But I'm pretty sure the liquidity would be there up to at least $10. No, I didn't even read the Q4 market report because it basically covers the same over and over. What I covered is the Ripple momentum, and that I am 100% sure that they are not telling 100% the truth with the momentum. Like 2.4 billion notional value in a year compared to like 350 billion Swift makes a day. That's a freaking joke. So, last questions, otherwise we will close for today. In the meantime, until we wait, maybe there is coming another question. I really wish everyone is... one question I do have. I really hope everyone is safe and healthy at home and that you kind of get around with the COVID situation. I'm doing pretty well. The feedback on my job applications is getting a little bit better after I received some help on a little bit, let's say, fine-tuning my CV to make it a little bit more pleasant to read. And currently I have 2 leads open. We will see how that's going to progress. German was yesterday, Amy Ripple. Okay, nothing more, no more questions in that respect. I really wish you guys a nice rest of the weekend. Take care, stay healthy, and enjoy being pre-rich. I feel pretty freaking pre-rich.
I'm faster, I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap and my name is XRP. To the moon, yeah,